Okay, the first sentence in this book says, "Long before I became the president of a small state, I was an ordinary citizen of an immense power." So you're Armenian, you were born in the USSR, and your entire life experience has taught you a lot about the power of big and small. These days, however, everybody seems to agree that we're living in an era of great power politics, great power rivalries, but you're insisting that small states have a big role to play. Why so, and how can they do that?
Hello, do you hear me? Yeah? Good. Well, thank you very much, first of all. You and the Economist Impact for inviting me here to talk. I'm so happy to be in Cyprus again after 30 years. When I was here on behalf of Republic of Armenia as a young diplomat to establish diplomatic relations both with Greece and Cyprus. And I would like to say it's very important that you don't take whatever I'm saying here that I represent the Republic of Armenia or the government of Armenia, because I'm here as a pure theoretical physicist and a mathematician, trying to use just logic. I can easily take all of you to another debate that will go for another hour about the problems, because the problems are not only in Mediterranean, they are beyond it. I can easily take you to the problems of Republic of Armenia, people of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, the war that we had in 2020, are even beyond. So the world is much more complex and complicated. So I'm not going to do that, and definitely I'm not going to discuss, is Armenia going to pay for the problem in Gaza? So take whatever I am saying as an opinion of independent or former professor of theoretical physics and mathematics, both in Soviet Union, in Yerevan and in Moscow State, and later at Cambridge University and Harvard. Okay? For years I was looking and analyzing what's happening worldwide and what's the future of the small states for a simple reason. I was born in Soviet Union in a small republic which was called Armenian Soviet Social Republic. There was one simple rule in Soviet Union that was number one country in the world that was exercising absolute PR on human rights. All men and women were equal in Soviet Union. All men were equal. Everybody had the freedom. In reality, nobody had anything. So from coming back from Soviet Union and being a physicist, and my first articles were connected with the work of a very famous professor, Nathan Rosen, that worked with Einstein. And my first work was challenging Einstein. So if I am a young physicist, I can ask questions and challenge Einstein, so I can do the same not only in physics and mathematics, in nature, but in politics as well. So all my life, further life, being scientist, diplomat, prime minister, businessman, I always hated political correctness. So please, take whatever I'm saying as a challenge. There was a discussion and basically presentation of problems in Mediterranean. Fine. But what I would like to tell all of you, that the world is much more complex and much more. So I'm not going to take you to further conflicts. I'm going to take you deeper. This world is not the one that we lived 20, 30 years ago. And I was thinking, and I have a theory that was initially when I presented that, people thought that it's nonsense. That was at the World Economic Forum. But later it was printed in one of the most prestigious publications of the Munich Security Conference, in Financial Times and elsewhere. It's called that the world is quantum, and the politics of today should be quantum as well. So what do I mean? I don't have the time of doing that, or speaking about that, because the new book is coming out, which is called the new quantum politics of the world. What I mean many things, but one of the things is that this world is no longer classical. It's not the old world. It's not me, European Commissioner, saying that Europe doesn't work. We all know where is United Nations in Russia-Ukraine war? Where is United Nations in Gaza-Israel, this conflict? Where was United Nations at the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Nowhere. Okay? That the world has changed. In order to understand the deepness of this change, that's one of the reasons I named the old world as a classical one, and the new one is quantum. Why also quantum? As I said, there are 10 reasons for that. Quantum, because what has been rising all of these days is the power of quantum, individual. Why this is happening? Another reason being quantum. It's all is based on technology. 100 years ago, quantum physics was discovered. That's the reason that you have your telephone, your internet, your space travel, and everything. That means there is a power of individual with virtual power of the telephone, internet, and everything. That's the power that has created or was the source of Arab Spring, colored revolutions, and many other things in this new world. Moving governments and prime minister, even in Britain. The phone, the Facebook, the power of individual. So with the rise of the power of individual, what was rising, unnoticeable in many cases, the rise of small states. Simple figures without numbers, small states. And the results that I'm going to tell you, probably you all know, because it comes from Economist, from the World Bank, from the World Economic Forum. If you take the first top states in the world with the highest GDP per capita, they all are small states. Switzerland, Luxembourg, Qatar, Emirates, and the list continues. There are no big states. Unfortunately, there is no UK there, and there is no France, there is no America. If you take the top 10 countries in the world by, let's say, innovation index, the first top 10 are again small states. Singapore, Ireland, and so on and so forth. If you take the top 10 states in the world that are the best in e-governance, again, the first 10 are small states. And the first one is a very small state. It's Estonia. How on earth a small Estonia is much more advanced than the huge Germany? Tell me. Because we live in a new world. This world is so complex and so different than the one that we lived before. If we don't recognize that, we will never be able to resolve issues on Mediterranean. For a simple reason. Let me give you a couple of other examples that are in my book. This book is not, don't worry, it's not mathematical work. I wrote it as a sort of an easy reading book, a storytelling to engage someone. Let me give you an example. Can anybody tell me from this audience, anybody, where was the first artificial intelligence university created on this planet? Greece? No. It was created in United Arab Emirates. It's called Artificial Intelligence University for a decade ago, named after Mohammed bin Zayed, yes. And it's Masdar City, and is run by one of the top specialists in the world, Eric Zink, who is American of Chinese origin. And that small country is one of the leaders in the world in artificial intelligence and quantum computing. And has, despite having huge amount of oil, they have built a huge nuclear power plant in order to have enough energy to serve the quantum computers and research in artificial intelligence. Because when you speak about artificial intelligence and quantum computing, it's not about only software. It's all about energy. You have to have enough energy to run your servers. Okay? Very, very simple question.
Can I jump in and ask
Of course.
a few questions? Okay, great. I guess, well, I want to hear how you would define a small state. I know that institutions like the IMF and World Bank have their definitions, and I suspect that you have a very different approach from them. But the small states that you write about, the smart small states or the successful small states that you write about in the book, from Singapore to Estonia, Ireland to Botswana, they're very diverse. So maybe you could just try and identify. I know you say that there's no kind of blueprint, but can you just tell us a few common denominators that have made them successful? Some essential qualities, maybe, or attributes of those states?
Well, thank you. Basically, there are two questions. The one is how do I identify, how do we define which state is small? If I would tell you a number, let's say 10 million population, somebody will ask you a question, why not 11? Okay, why not 9? So the key is very simple. I don't define a small state. I leave to all of us to agree. Is Cyprus a small state? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So we all agree it's a small state. Is Britain a small state?
No.
No, fine. So it's so easy. So basically, if we agree that Qatar is a small state or Ireland is a small state, then we agree. It's not about size. Norway is a small state because it's a very complicated question. Although the territory is big, the population is small. But definitely, Norway is a smart state and a successful one. A state that has natural resources like oil, but instead of burning that oil or corruptly just making a couple of guys very rich, what Norway is doing, using technology, they have 1.5 times of their needed energy from wind and waves. All the oil basically is sold, and that money is going to their state fund, which is investing in top class world companies. One of the biggest, probably the biggest, 1.6 trillion fund as well. So that's an answer for your question, first question. Mm-hmm. The second question was?
The second question is, okay, there's no blueprint, and you don't say there's a blueprint for what makes a successful small state, but are there some common denominators among those successful? What are they?
Well, that was the whole idea of writing this book, to basically look at these states, which includes many states, including Israel, Qatar, Singapore, and others, basically forgetting are they democratic, about their human rights records and all of that stuff, just analyzing how on earth a small state, what were the reasons of these states were successful? Why Singapore, having all of these conflicts and problems with Muslims, Hindus, and Chinese together, has created a new identity and a success? I'm not going to tell you the answer, because otherwise my hope of you guys reading my book will disappear. So I hope that some of you at least will read the book. But there are clear indications of, for example, there must be clear national identity, either in base or you create one, like in Singapore. There is a national identity in Israel. There is a national identity that was developing in Qatar together with the conflict that Qatar had with the other neighbors, Arab neighbors. Their national identity was growing. And there is a new created national identity.
I'm just speaking to the technician.
Yeah, there's a newly created national identity, which is in Singapore. Okay? So national identity. What matters, how effectively you take your natural or human resource that you have. In the case of Singapore, it was the human resource and geographical advantage. In the case of Qatar or Emirates, it was the natural resource that smartly was converted into one of the most advanced countries in the world. Like as I was saying, United Arab Emirates. So basically, it's here. It's very important how you manage it. If you take Qatar, a country like Turkmenistan has even more gas than Qatar. But look how Qatar is using it. Ireland doesn't have oil, but it has huge human resources. Half of the US presidents were Irish. And Ireland had managed, I was in Ireland 35 years ago. You go back to Ireland today, it's a completely different country. And what was moving them? Smart decisions, making usage of Irish people, hardworking, taxation system, and the whole diaspora, the network of Ireland has worldwide.
So in your book, from this part of the world, we've got in your book Israel, Qatar, UAE. They've made it in there. How about Cyprus and Greece? Do you think they have what it takes, the potential or the attributes to be successful small states?
Well, the number of small, in my book, there are 9 states plus Armenia. Why Armenia? Well, unfortunately, Armenia is not a successful state yet, I hope. But I couldn't not write about Armenia because people would ask you, if you are so smart, you are the president of Armenia, president of parliamentary, why you didn't make it smart? I tried. And I would say that unfortunately I didn't succeed. Yeah? But I'm honest there. But I should write about it. But there are 9 states, but doesn't mean that the small, smart states or successful states are only 9. There are much more of them. Okay? And of course that club is open. If you are a small state now and you are taking the path of being smart, working hard, becoming someone that will be recognized as a small, smart state or successful state, then of course you will be welcome to that club. Now the question is that club virtual or real? Is that the question? Because you said, Joe, you said about S20, yes?
Yes, I want to come to that at the end, and actually we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So I want to come back to the whole idea of the S20, but just before that, you mentioned in passing there that when you looked at these countries, you weren't looking at whether the nature of the political regime, the political setup in those countries. But it is quite striking that of those 10 countries in the book, only half of
9.
them. Well, I'm including the Armenia as well.
Thank you very much.
But only half of those countries are actually democracies, or at least as classified by our own democracy index. So I'm just wanted to probe a bit about that, whether you think that democracy is important or not in determining whether a state not only can be successful, but over the long term, that it can succeed and have a kind of sustainable success story, if you like.
I think the book has 9 states that are monarchies, centralized strong power, democracy like in Singapore, but with a lot of muscle, and others, okay? Well, I could have put, for example, one after another, for example, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. They're all smart and successful states, but then the book would have been a bit boring and will not basically give you a solution, what I am looking for. So you can be small and smart and successful, like Israel is it, or like Qatar, if you are, let me not say the word democracy because it's a crucial name, but even in the new quantum world, the democracy must be redefined, how we exercise democracy. It's not only that we go 4 or 5 times, once in 4 years to the ballot and vote. That's not the democracy in 21st century. It checks and balances and many other things. But the other thing is that in our world, with the mobile phone, we are voting 5-6 times a day. And that's a new democracy. So we have to think about how to exercise democracy and how the other states can be democratic in this new world. From the point of view of what sort of states, I think the states that are focusing on their people. I think from that point of view, if somebody would like to use the old Greek name of democracy, yes. Democracy, that the countries are run by the top best people of the nation, against kakistocracy, which is Greek, means that the country is run by the worst representatives of the nation. So you define who is a democracy in this world, run by the best guys, or who is a kakistocracy, and you can see the ones that are kakistocracy, they are definitely not smart and they are not successful.
Thanks. We've come to the end. We've got one more session and we need to finish by 6:30. So my last question...
Can we drag feet like the previous session? No?
We can try, but I don't think Nectaria will allow
No,
me.
Nectaria, don't worry.
We're not. We're joking. So we're very disciplined, are we
course.
not? The final point really is about this idea of the small states club. So you published this book. This is something that you're personally very keen on. It stirred a discussion about, the possibility of such a group. Have you encountered enthusiasm for this? Is this something that you think could actually materialize and play? What sort of role could it play, actually?
Well, I can share it with you, Joe. I think this was not just a sort of a theoretical exercise of many years that I just put as a book and tried to make it popular. Sort of people will be different parts of our population can read it and enjoy it as a even travel book. Okay? No, the aim was to make a small introduction to the idea of you can be small, you can be smart, you can be powerful, you can be successful. Let's try everybody, okay? But how do you try one is the idea of a club. I think we were just speaking about UN, European Union. The club is not another international organization, neither political or economic or military or nothing. It's just a club. People come together and share their experience of being smart and successful. Imagine once a year, 10, 15, 20 heads of states or foreign ministers come together of small, smart states and have 1 or 2 days of together in a conference or just a club meeting and sharing with each other their success, the source of their success, and so on. In this new world, we need more connections and communications, especially if the big ones, multinationals, are very effective, especially if the ideology-based world is changing. The world is not divided now between communism and capitalism. Russia is one of the big capitalist states. In fact, in many ways, it's oligarchic or you name it, what sort of a capitalist, but it's a capitalist state. So the thing is, what sort of state you are. It's not about ideology. It's not about how do you take care of people. So from that point of view, if one day we, after a while, when the club works, we can create S20, or I hope it's S30. There are 30 top-class, small but smart and successful states. Their voice should be heard. Very simple. We have G20, the giant 20. Okay? They come together, they decide the future of the world. Why on earth these small states, where people live better than in the giant states, why they don't have their voice heard? Because they are small, there are too many of them. But maybe we can bring them together and their joint voice could be represented at G20, at United Nations, at G7, and will be an example for other small states to work harder, be smarter, to look in the future rather than into the past of conflicts and who was responsible, who is the bad guy, who is the new guy. the world is no longer black and white. It's multicolored. So we have to realize that in this new world, the size doesn't decide much. If you are looking for military power, doesn't matter, do you have, for example, 1 million soldiers? If I will tell you, what would you prefer, to have 1 million soldiers or 2 million drones? Which one would you prefer? I would prefer 2 million drones. And a country like Emirates can easily have 2 million drones. The nuclear power is no longer in the hands of a couple of guys, because I'm a physicist, theoretical. I can build a nuclear power plant anywhere, including in Cyprus. Nuclear power plant and a nuclear bomb. It's not about how you manage and say you cannot have it. It's all about, because it's a knowledge. We have to find another way, and another way, for example, in nuclear is to manage a nuclear fuel. Not the idea of having a bomb or a nuclear power plant. So the world is changing, and we have to change. That's my message.
Excellent, Armen Sarkissian. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.